Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be covering how to win lane and carry games on Aatrox in Season 14. The way we're going to be doing so today is I'm going to be breaking down two of the best Aatrox one tricks out there at the moment, Camille on the Korean server and Nail on the US server. Now I did have a little look on the American server, but unfortunately I did not find anyone that meets my standard. We're mainly going to be focusing on these two, so we're going to be breaking down their builds, their runes, and how exactly they're playing so well, so much better than the rest of the Aatrox players out there. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get started. Hey everyone, if you're passionate about improving and leveling up your gameplay, I've been offering coaching classes for 5 days a week for quite some time, and just seen firsthand how much my students have been improving across all different elo brackets. How it works is you'll come to a class with a VOD like reviewed, and I'm going to help you with your early game, your mid game, or anything you feel like needs improving. And if you're unsure, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction by setting clear learning objectives. Link's going to be in the description, I hope to see you there, but if not, then enjoy the video. Now, before we start reviewing the gameplay, we're going to be breaking down the runes and the item builds that these players like to take. But if you feel like you already know the optimal setup on this champion, feel free to skip ahead, I will be timestamping it all down below. And as we can see, very standard rune page. So what you're going to be taking in over 95% of your games, Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. And you may be wondering why Alacrity over Haste. I'd imagine Haste is quite good on Aatrox. That's just because you have no other way to get attack speed on your build. I have seen some Stride Break Aatroxes. I don't recommend that. Not the best build, we'll be going through the builds right after this, but Alacrity, if you don't take it, you can't get attack speed, and your champion feels very clunky without it. Not very clunky, but you definitely feel a lot smoother, weaving in autos between your spells if you have Alacrity, and even though this champion, a lot of the damage does come from your Q, you still use auto attacks quite well, so I definitely recommend Alacrity, and for our secondary runes, Resolve with Second Wind and Overgrowth. But I do advise taking Bone Plating into heavy all-in lanes, such as Jax or Riven, because they can't really pop it without committing, so you will get a lot of value from that rune. And the shards are going to be adaptive, and scaling HP down here, where you could take flat HP in really hard matchups early like Fiora, but I would advise against that because Aatrox, you're not really going to be playing too aggressive 1 to 3 in the majority of your matchups. And even if you are, the HP is not going to change much because if you are, that means that matchup's not too hard. And the scaling HP rune starts to even out around level 6, outperform at 7. And most of the time you're playing more aggressive at level 4 to 5 on this champion. They're only missing 10 HP, so the scaling is definitely going to be more worthwhile. You're not going to win a level 4 roll in on 20 HP, but if you are, if you feel like that's consistent for you, of course, feel free to take the flat HP, but I do recommend scaling in the majority of your games. And as for the situational pages, I have seen Kim and Jae, the Korean Aatrox, take Fleet footwork into scary range matchups. So champions like Kennen or Jace, he actually prefers Fleet because he values the sustain and being high HP a lot more than the extra damage from Conqueror because he's going to win the all-in against those champions regardless. And Nail also likes to take Phase Rush into matchups like Darius and Olaf, where they can run you down and it's really hard for you to beat them in an extended fight. They're having Phase Rush to kite them around, kite out that Olaf ulti, kite out that Darius before he gets 5 stacks. It's going to be valuable for him. But I do want to recommend if you are playing in lower elo brackets, I'd say D4 and below, that you don't need to be taking these pages. You can try it if you want. Give it a shot, give it one try into the matchup, especially if you hate versing champs like Kennen, you can try Fleet, or champs like Darius, try out Phase. But these players that they're playing against are Challenger Darius players or Challenger Kennen players. They are punishing a lot more and making a lot less mistakes. So having extra runes to do better in the lane is a bit more important there. If you're playing up against a Platinum or a Gold Darius player, they're going to be making so many mistakes that you can punish, and if you have Conqueror, not only can you capitalize on their mistakes more and play for those kills, but you also have a lot more carry potential. You want to be carrying your games a lot more in lower ranks, where in Challenger Plus, of course you still want to be carrying games, but doing your role is going to be more important, where if he took Conqueror and lost the lane to Olaf or Darius, is not going to be as valuable as if he took Phase Rush and did relatively well, even though his scaling might be a little bit worse. Next up, we're going to be covering the item builds, and we'll start with Kim and Jae on the Korean server, and as you can see, he loves the full damage version of Aatrox. I personally believe this is the best build you can do on him right now in the majority of your games, and his standard build is always going to be Eclipse, Profane, Grudge into Edge of Night, and if you're wondering about his last item, it really depends on the game. It can be more if he needs a mask, Dirax, maybe an armor item if he needs it, or he'll just go an extra lethality item if he needs damage. But his build is going to be Eclipse first only in matchups where he needs it. So champions that are going to be fighting him and engaging onto him quite a lot 1v1, champs like Jax, Camille, Yone, you need Eclipse to fight them back. Without that extra shielding and survivability, you're really going to struggle into those matchups where they have a lot of all-in threat. But if he's versing a tank, or a low threat champion. So what I mean by low threat champion will be champs that can't really get onto him. The range champs like Vayne or Smolder, Vladimir, champs like that, he goes Profane Hydra and just goes full damage. And even if he's not against a tank, he'll still go Grudge second because he really values the slowing effect from this item. And then he rounds off his build Edge of Night and then like a Aatrox or extra lethality if he feels like he's snowballing really hard. And when he versus AP lanes, so Gwen and Rumble are the most notable, most popular, he will build a Hex Drinker first. But if he versus a Cannon, he'll just stick on Merc Treads unless they have an AP jungler as well, especially against Rumble and Gwen, who have a lot of combat power 1v1 and kill threat. He goes Hex Drinker into Profane. You can go full more if you verse a ridiculous amount of AP. So let's say you verse Rumble Lilia. Then you can go more as your first item, but if it's just the Gwen or the Rumble and they have a normal jungler, then you can just build Hex, sit on it, and then go Profane into Grudge into Edge, very standard. And he rushes tier 2 boots even on this patch where it feels very bad to do so, in games where they're very valuable. So if you verse a AD top, like a Camille with a Graves, Abby's are still goaded, or an AP top jungle, Mercs are good, but even if he just verses an AP crowd control champion like Cannon, he'll still rush Mercs even if they have a Lee Sin or something in the jungle, but he normally does sit on tier 1 boots in games where tier 2s aren't that valuable. So let's say, for example, you're versing an AP top like a Rumble, and they have a normal AD jungler, Lee Sins and Zal Kindred, anything like that, then he'll just sit on tier 1 boots. He won't go full tier 1 boots no matter what, depends how much gold he has when he buys, but he'll just go Hex Drinker for the Rumble, or the Gwen, something like that, and sit on tier 1s and then finishes Profane before he upgrades to tier 2s. So now that tier 2s have been nerfed quite heavily, make sure you're only rushing them in games where they have a lot of value. Not but just before where they were cheap, they were easy to get and felt great on the champion. Now you have to be building them with intention. And Serpent's Fang, I've got it here just because if he sees champs like Ivern and Lulu running around, he'll pick this up as his third item because the shield cut is very valuable and it's an easy lethality item to build for you. For our next build, we have Nail on the EUS server, and some of you'll notice straight away it's very different to the previous build. He goes Black Cleaver in the majority of his games. He goes it as his first item most of the time, and then he will go mainly the second build, the lethality build we have here, Black Cleaver into Hydra into Opportunity, and then whatever he needs in the game. He can build more defensive if he needs it, or extra lethality items like Ghostblade or even Hubris if he's snowballing. But I would say the big difference between this build is the Cleaver, and the benefits of it is going to be the HP and the haste. Now, I will say the HP does go a long way in terms of increasing your survivability, because if you go like the previous build, say Profane into Grudge, you are very, very squishy. But in my opinion, modern day Aatrox, you want to be that style more often. You want to be that carry threat and having as much damage as possible and threat on the backline. The times where I can see the Black Cleaver build being better is if you have so much damage on your team comp already. If you have jungle, mid, AD carry, all full damage, kind of front to back styles, then I can see it. But if you're flanking as this build on Aatrox and you're not ahead, Black Cleaver Aatrox, you're not killing anything. So if the enemy backline is playing better or they're stronger or playing better champs than your backline, I don't think this build is going to be very good. But if you have a strong front to back team comp, so, you know, solo queue special, your jungler pick Graves, mid's got a Zaya, you've got like a Jinx, then I can see it. You can be that frontline beef for your team, and you could even go the Bruiser build, Black Cleaver into the Sundered Sky, sorry, into Styrax. You can be that front line for your team and play more of a front to back. But Aatrox's main identity is that flanker, where you want to be blowing up the backline and having insane threat as a flanker. So lethality is going to be better most of the time. And because you're also playing solo queue, you want to have as much carry potential as possible. But I definitely do see the value of this Black Cleaver build. But in my personal opinion, if you are curious, I prefer the lethality build most of the time. But I will go Cleaver, the Cleaver tank build, in games where my team just needs a front line so badly, and I feel like their backline is not really going to be an issue. Now, as we can see, he rushes the Executioner's Calling versus Fiora. The heal cut does go a long way, and he'll also do tier 2 boots, very, very similar to the previous guy, but I'd say he rushes tier 2 boots a little bit more often. It could be because the Black Cleaver spike's not as big as the Hydra spike, it's hard to say, but still, he's definitely going to be rushing tier 2s in games where it's very valuable, so that's going to be consistent across both players. Alright, so we're going to be reviewing quite a few matchups and also a mid-game and some team fighting from each player, and we'll start with Camille. So we can see this game, he's playing Aatrox up against a Yone, and he does something straight away that I don't recommend you do too often, and that is leashing for his jungler. Now granted, Aatrox does have one of the best leashes in top lane, but he's also up against a really good Yone player, and his jungler is also a high-rank Korean player, so he's probably going to use that tempo quite well. And also the Yone is not going to make enough mistakes for him to punish. Releasing would be slightly better for him than it would be for the majority of the player base, where if you have somebody that makes mistakes and you start in lane, even though Aatrox isn't really that strong 1-3, you can maybe get cheeky autos, cheeky Qs, and that could lead to solo kills up against players that make more mistakes. So we can see straight away, I'll bring it back a bit, he utilizes his passive quite well, he stabs the Yone instantly instead of using it on a minion, and now he's dumping some spells and autos on the wave. So he did try to hit Yone with that Q, of course, but even though he knows I'm giving Yone a push in this matchup, he wants to hit the wave a lot, because there is a big difference between giving push and giving hard push. He doesn't want Yone to get level 2 while he's 2 or 3 minions himself off level 2 and have that really big advantage over him. So here he's only 1 minion off 2, so he doesn't have to respect for that long. So sitting back here, respecting the tornado. So we can see because he hit the wave earlier, even though he's still giving Yone a push, he's only 1 minion off 2, so he only has to give that 1 caster minion back there, and now he can hit the wave again. So really good on his part, and utilizing the E auto reset. Get last hits under tower, getting a Q onto Yone doesn't amount to much. And some of you may notice is he took bone plating up against Yone, even though at later points of the lane, good Q buffer there, buffered the Q before Yone secured him. Even though Yone can pop bone plating very easily with W, he really values it even against champs like Camille or Yone that can pop it, because if they do all in you, in the side later on, or even in lane early game, you get a lot of value from it, but especially level 1, we can see traded autos, and really good of Yone there to dodge the tower shot, and very standard Aatrox gameplay. You're going to give your opponent push most of the time, and your main time to strike is going to be on the bounce back. So around level 4, when the wave is bouncing back, you're going to have the minion advantage and XP advantage if your opponent's letting it come back, so that's the time where you can punish, but this Yone actually plays really well in this point of the game, and he hard pushes this wave. So what this does for Yone, instead of letting the wave come back in and trying to punish here, where if Aatrox had a big stack wave in level 4, he could trade onto him. The Yone hit the wave a lot, and actually broke this wave to get level 4 before him, so really good on his part. So now Aatrox has lost a big common timer for trading, so Yone's obviously experienced in this matchup. But he still gets a pretty good trade, the Aatrox onto him, and now he just needs to let the wave come in, and here he decides very shortly to trade a lot of HP with the Yone, because he knows when the wave bounces back towards Yone, he needs to be in a spot where he can fight. So he's trading HP now, so he can base and TP in the future, and Yone not be in as good of a position. So we can see exactly what's happening. He's letting the wave come in, but still trying to trade as much HP as he can. And now, because of Yone's trading, he has to base and TP. So base and TPs, and Yone also does the same after he crashes this wave. So Yone has a bit of extra gold, and as we can see by the buy, double longsword versus, I'm pretty sure it's a recurve bow and a refillable. Yone's got the advantage in terms of potions, which means Aatrox has to play very well on this trading because he has no pots out, but he does do exactly that. We'll see very shortly how he does so. So drops his ward down because he knows level 5 Aatrox is the first really big spike for trading in lane. This is when you can win the majority of your matchups, and straight away he's going to be looking to trade instantly. So Q1 into him, the Q2 auto. He holds his W here because he knows the Yone will just snap back straight away. A lot of Aatrox players use W just for the damage, but it's really important that you use it for the utility of the spell. So because the cooldown is so long, and now he has W in case Yone tried to retrade. So he only moved down here because he saw a skirmish, but he didn't get anything from it, so the lane's going to be pretty normal. And now, again, level 5, this is when he wants to be trading a lot onto Yone straight away. Q1 onto him, into E, runs past, still has his W up that he didn't use before, Q2, and now holding onto Q3, doesn't want to blindly throw into the bush, holds onto it and even weaves in an auto attack before the Q3, so really good stuff. Now, some of you may notice it looks pretty easy that he just kills him here, so he'll use an auto reset as well, pretty sure, auto E, really good auto reset. Some of you will notice that I see a lot of players kind of underestimate that you can pick up in champ select. If you're taking Conqueror, which on Aatrox you will be most of the time, and your opponent is not, if they're taking runes like Fleet, Phase Rush, Grasp, all these really short trading runes, you're almost always, especially at level 5 on Aatrox, going to be favored if the trade goes for long enough. So we can see he's running into this bush, he's not afraid, even though Yone has way shorter cooldowns, just to fight him to the death, kind of auto attacks. He uses his spells well as well, but he's just trading autos because he's got Conqueror, 123 AD here, and Yone does not. So he's going to be favored in the long trade, especially now that he's hit his spike. A really good utilization of his champion, but also the difference in combat power from both runes. For our next matchup, we have Gwen, and he opted to start Doran's Shield as well in this lane, just like the last one. He does it every single game, and he's walking in with his wave level 1. So something that's very interesting about the way he plays this matchup is the way it should go is Gwen can get pushed in this lane if she wants to, of course. Her Q cooldown is so short, He can hit Aatrox in the center and the wave at the same time if he walks up, and Aatrox's Q damage is not that high, she doesn't have to worry too much about it, but we can see he's instantly staunching with his passive, and because Gwen gave him so much space in the lane, he was able to get the stab Q. You can see it did no damage. He's so afraid of it for no reason, and he also utilizes bone plating quite well here, so he's utilizing passive and bone plating at the same time, and he notices the Gwen is playing quite passive, so he decides instead of letting the wave come in like it should normally go, he hits it a lot and actually gets pushed himself. So this is a great example because this is a good player, but he failed kind of the skill check of getting pushed. Maybe he was scared of jungle for some reason in Italy, probably not, but he was over-respecting Aatrox passive stab with bone plating level 1. We can see how little damage it did, and Aatrox was able to get pushed. So especially if you're playing in brackets below Master, you're going to be able to get pushed in certain matchups, even though objectively you shouldn't be able to, which is why it can be scary to watch only high-low content and see, oh, this is how the matchup should go, I'll play safe then. When this Gwen failed the skill check, she over-respected, she didn't hold her ground when Aatrox walked at her, so he was able to get pushed and get a really good level 2 trade onto her, and because he's getting pushed, he has a minion advantage, going to get level 3 before her, and the lane is in his control even at the point of the lane when it shouldn't be. We can see, goes on wards now, because he's going to be playing aggressive on this timer, doesn't want to get ganked, and really good spells there, Q2 into E, and he's going to be walking up with passive again. So every time he has passive, he tries to utilize it, he's trying to use as much as he can, but now that Gwen is respecting, he's of course just going to use it for a minion here and get level 3 before her. So really good use of getting pushed in this matchup. He got level 3 first, and he's looking for a trade onto her. But even though you are level 3, your champion, the Q damage is still very low. Until you get a couple points into it, level 4, level 5, not the scariest, but him having this much control in the lane, even though when he shouldn't, is still going to be great for him. We can see, using Q as Gwen goes for minions. He doesn't just throw out the Q randomly. He waits for Gwen to walk towards the wave and go for a minion that looks juicy. So you have to watch your own wave as well as the enemy wave and punish when they go for it. So good W, auto, E, auto. He uses that combo quite a lot when he's fighting. A lot of Aatroxes rely on E to reposition your Q, which is a good use for it. But auto, E, auto, especially in the early levels when your Q does no damage, very valuable as well. So level 4 here, it's got that level advantage. And you can see the lane is in a great spot. Half HP versus about a third, and he's got the level lead right now, about to be equalized. So Gwen goes for the timer here, level 4 versus 4, pretty short, very shortly. So he Qs in, and he dodges the center part of the Gwen Q with his E. So really good. He was waiting for that. He saw Gwen level 4 with 4 stacks of Q, and he was waiting to dodge the center part of her Q with his E. So that's going to be consistent in a lot of matchups. You can dodge Camille W, Yone Q3, lots of those spells with your E, and here he dodges the Q, the center part of Q from Gwen, and he's able to win the all-in. So he's got the minion advantage as well. He's able to get the kill. So really smart by him, really good use of his spells, but the thing I'm most impressed by is even though he's versus a good player, and he knows how the matchup should go, as soon as Gwen failed that level 1 skill check, that staunch, he decided to get pushed, and he used it very, very well. Now, this will be the last matchup of this guy that we watch. This game is playing Aatrox up against Camille. I mainly want to watch the mid game and the team fighting from this game, but I'll show a little bit of the lane as well, even though it wasn't quite as eventful. So we can see straight away passive stab onto her instantly. His passive auto is faster than hers, so he can get his passive up before she can touch his stab down before she can get her passive up, and straight away queuing her in the wave at the same time. Even though he knows she's going to get pushed, he wants to trim that wave a little bit so she doesn't get hard push and abuse that level 2 against him. So constantly hitting the wave when he can, abusing passive when he can. So very, very good by him. Very standard stuff. And goes for a Q, level 2 at pretty much the exact same time. You can see the benefit of hitting the wave, even if you don't want to be getting pushed and you want to give them push. He just wants to be hitting the wave. When you want to get pushed and you want to 3-wave crash, most of the time, you want to be hitting the wave slightly more than your opponent. If you're letting them push, it's going to be kind of the opposite, hitting it slightly less. But if in certain matchups like the Gwen game, that might lead to you getting pushed in the end. So you have to be willing to get that push if you want it. But we can see Camille got pushed. She does win this matchup 1-3, but he is able to trim the wave enough that he's not that scared. Of course, level 2 at the same time, level 3 very similar time, so he's not in too bad of a spot. Going to be looking for a trade here on his next set of Qs. Right now he's holding his point. We can see he doesn't have W, doesn't have Q. He's waiting to see if he can actually utilize W in a trade or not. If she's guarding with her minions and blocking their W, he goes 2 points in Q. Very standard by him. But here he's holding that point just in case he can get a W onto her in an extended trade. But he didn't, so he's just going to last hit the farm here. Last hit it very slowly. and one Q there. No sweet spot Q, just the naked Q onto the wave. So he's able to get them slightly low enough that he can just get the last hit with one auto attack after tower shot. So very nice by him. Now he's pushing the wave out and waiting for Camille to come back. So very slow last hitting. It's not as low as he was versus the Yone game, because of course Camille's a lot easier than Yone in terms of short trades. He's able to stay. He doesn't need a base, and really good EQ here to cancel her hook shot. So really impressive stuff in this matchup, and gets the W down, hoping for the pull in extra auto, but unlucky there. And baits out her passive, so pretty nice stuff. And here he does take a pretty bad trade, because he wanted to get involved in the action. We can see last game, the game versus Yone, he did that as well. So it's pretty much standard the Korean server, regardless of player. You are just involved in the majority of the action, unless it just looks terrible. They moved down just in case they needed him, but they didn't end up needing him. So he took a little bit of a bad trade, but if there was a good skirmish, you definitely want to be involved in it. And we can see he's staunching quite hard. He knows he gets level 5 of this creep. He's going to be looking for a trade onto level 5 versus 4. So Camille's also trading here because she wants Kha'Zix to gank. So she's trying to trade as much as she can, even though she's down a level. And here, he's about to get ganked, but he outplays it pretty well from what I remember. See here, gets his ward in the bush because he had a feeling Kha'Zix was there, and then tries to dodge Camille E with his E. But Camille E flashed him, so she's able to hit him, and then flash backwards. So he's pretty confident he could tank them. Their damage is very low, especially with Kha'Zix just having the jungle item. Nothing really too worrying. And we can see not as eventful as the last lane, but some pretty good stuff there nonetheless. And now we're going to skip ahead to the mid game and watch some team fighting. Now, I have skipped a little bit further into the mid-game than I normally would. I just wanted to make this video as productive as possible, and you didn't miss too much. So we can see here, this is one of these games that if you're an Aatrox player, you can feel his pain, are really, really hard to win. Your bot lane is feeding, your Draven has got haunting, guys. He's crying a little bit, very tilted. Mid jungle's behind, and he was roamed on so often by support, and mid a little bit, that now even though he did well in his 1-5 versus a counter matchup, he's now really far behind against a champion that beats him in the split. So really hard for him to carry this game, but he still has really high impact regardless. So he goes top here, pushing out the wave, and he's holding onto his TP, of course, looking to use it for Dragon. So he's watching right now, and right now he's thinking, if they go in, I'm going to TP, if they fully commit. Not TPing now when Camille's just staring, he's waiting for them to commit, and basically as soon as Camille uses her E, he starts his TP into this bush here, and now he's able to be a part of this fight. So the way he uses his spells was quite good in this fight, even though they're down so far behind. So it leads with Q1, Q2, doesn't use his E yet. You don't need to use your E if you're already going to hit the sweet spots of Q1 and Q2. I know it's kind of easy for me to say that, but in a game, it's quite difficult to do consistently. And then he holds on to Q3, doesn't want to Q3 a Alistar ulted Alistar, so he lets it time out and gets his reduced cooldown. So Q1 E onto Camille, W into Q2. So pretty nice combo there. Even if you are the lethality variant of Aatrox, you don't always have to flank and play the kill backline, especially when the enemy team has champs that are going to go forward who are also squishy. So if there was like a Cassante or something, of course, you probably want to throw in the backline a bit more, but champs like Camille, Kha'Zix, champs that are going forward, but they're very squishy and do a lot of damage, you can play front to back and use your damage as kind of a peel. We can see here, holding onto his E, holding onto his Q, doesn't want to use onto Alistar, the support for no reason, and he tries to go for a Q1 onto LeBlanc, but she dodges with W, and then Q2 E's to space out the Alistar, tries to cancel his W, and he sees him flash here, so he buffers his Q3, while Alistar can get his Q off. So pretty nice buffer there, able to get the damage onto Alistar and take him out. So we can't expect a 5-0 wipe in a game where his whole team is playing poorly, except jungle's doing okay. So pretty good result for a team fight regardless, and he did play this fight pretty well, regardless of that deficit. So now freshly respawn, heading back onto the map, and something you'll notice he does is he runs straight into mid looking for a proactive play. He doesn't go straight to side, because he knows on Aatrox you're not going to be winning the game through side lane. He can't actually beat Camille anyway on this timer, he's 2 items versus 2.5, so if he goes side and tries to push this out, he's just going to die. He can't get the wave to here and create pressure, and he doesn't want to just sit here and wait for Camille to push the wave in, but something he does that's quite good is he actually fogs between the lanes extremely well. So now, he wants to be a part of this play. I'll put it on their vision. So they don't know that he's here. He's floating around. If there's a play mid, if my Annie gets a good engage, I'll follow up. Or if Camille, he doesn't know Camille's basing, if she shows on this wave, I might gank her with Vi, or I might just catch this wave, because he doesn't want to give Camille tier 2, and he doesn't want to miss out on a potential fight. So he's fog of warring, he's hiding between the lanes, and he's ready to do each one. So really good on his part. We can see, and he does get that pretty nice engage onto the Aatrox, and he's able to follow up, pick up the kill, and kill Alistar as well. Really nice flexibility on his part. If Camille did show now, he'd just go back to side. And if she showed earlier and he didn't get that engage, he would answer on tier 2. So he's open to whatever happens in the game. So now we can see he's just looking to abuse that lead 5v3, run them down. But Aatrox is pretty bad at chasing people, especially LeBlanc Kazakhs. You're not going to really get onto them. So he's just kind of hoping that his Rakan or Vi gets some magic done and he can follow up. It's actually a Smolder, not a Traven. My bad on earlier. Maybe he's not that tilted, but we can see. He's just looking to play front to back right now, 5v3. And if the team comps were different, if there was like Kasante, Sejuani, just give an easy example, he'd be playing more so the 3 in backline in these team fights, but because they're very squishy kind of bursty assassins that are running forward, he can just play more of that front to back and hit the closest target because he has a lot of damage and they're not very tanky, so you can get a lot of value down with his spell. So good kill onto the Camille there, and they're looking to kind of bait them into Baron. They know they can't do Baron, their damage is way too low. They don't have any real good damage, Smolder's not the best at it, and of course Annie sucks at it too. They're looking to engage here, so pretty good jump backwards there when he sees the LeBlanc go in. And now he's going to be flashing in because he sees Annie is approaching from the flank. He wants to kind of create a window for him. He goes in, tries to do as much damage as he can. Almost got the Q3 down, but he did enough damage and bought enough time that Annie can get a great flank. So nice team fighting by him. I'd say the chasing them around part's not the best because there's nothing really more he can do. He's trying to overforce a little bit, but great stuff. I really like the fog between the lanes where he can answer Camille if he needs to, and he can be a part of the skirmish if it's an option, because as Aatrox you want to be skirmishing as much as possible during this item spike. I'll skip ahead a little bit more. Unfortunately, he wasn't a part of the fight that got them Baron. He got caught outside, made a big mistake on his part, and his team won a team fight off of it. But we can see he plays this next 1v2 skirmish very, very well. I wanted to showcase the power of the build as well. Even though he's not very strong, 5 and 6, he's got the full damage build here where he clips into the Camille. And he's got a Dirk building into another lethality item, probably into Edge of Night. And we can see here he's trying to catch LeBlanc out inside, but he has to face check it. This is his vision. And we can see straight away, not off to a good start. Instantly chunked by LeBlanc, Kazakhs coming in. And I'll slow down a little bit here. So we can see Q2 here. It's chunked to really low HP, pops ulti to auto into Q3 flash backwards, able to hit both of them, insta-kill on both of them with that Q3 flash. A really nice combo by him. You can see the power of this build even in game when you're behind, which is why I prefer the full damage variant. But now it's time for us to review how powerful the Black Cleaver build can also be from Nail on the US server. Moving on to Nail, and this game is playing Aatrox up into Irelia, and I really wanted to showcase this one because not only is it a very volatile matchup, but it is quite a hard one and a pretty common Aatrox counterpick. And when I see a lot of my students, especially in the Emerald Elo bracket, play this matchup, they've been killed before. In the past, they've struggled with it, but now they play quite safe. They let the Irelia push, and they play it very respectful. But that's not the way you can win this matchup. I really like the setup Nail's taken here, and I don't really watch a lot of his content, but I've studied his games recently, and I've only really seen him take Ignite into Irelia, so really consistent by him. There is probably other matchups he takes it, but this is the one I've seen, and I really like Bone Plating, Ignite, Doran's Blade, full power for the 1 to 3. Trying to play as aggressive as possible, and you'll see very shortly he does just that. So he runs at her straight away, hits her with passive, abusing Bone Plating, abusing Doran's Blade, but even wants the bush so she can't walk in it, and he fights her straight away. So really nice trading HP, and she ended up having to start W for this Q3, or she would have taken too bad of a trade. But if he did the reverse, if he played quite passive, maybe even D-shield, or just let her push, like you do in a lot of Aatrox matchups, not only does she have a really high ability to force level 2 all-ins, but level 1 is quite strong. If she gets 4 stacks with Q and Qs onto you, can be a tough trade, can abuse level 2, abuse level 3, and if she gets a couple trades onto you, wave coming back, gonna die when the wave's here, because his jungler's coming up as well, so really hard to play out that scenario, especially with his jungler going down. But instead, he takes the most aggressive setup possible, even on a champion that is famously weak 1 to 3, but Irelia is also very weak level 1 before she gets her stacks, so he fought her on that timer, so really good. The Ignite was a mistake. I guess maybe he wanted to cut her potion healing, or it was just an accident, but it would have been better to hold it for the all-in here. But now I really like what he did with his wave as well. Even though he thought he fought her in the wave and took a lot of that damage, it will make your wave push a bit faster. He slowed down his push a lot. He's just last sitting here, not doing any unnecessary damage, because you don't want to crash wave 2 in this matchup, because if the wave bounces back around here and she gets level 3, or you're level 2, she can also kill you on that timer. It's a really good wave control, and his CSing was actually pretty good as well, 11 out of 12, not too shabby. And here we can see he should be pushing wave 3 in now. In my opinion, he should have pushed this wave in a little bit faster. I think he was hoping for an extra trade, and because he pushed it slow, it kind of ended here. But that allows him to Q her when she goes for a minion, so it's not bad in the 1v1. The only reason I would have slightly preferred a faster push is just because it's a opposite side, you know, his jungler top, his jungler bottom, their jungler top. So it's a little bit scary. He has no idea where Rengar is, but it is Rengar. His gank is quite weak. But if he appeared here, you know, you could be in quite a bad scenario. But he took the flip, and it actually paid off for him. And I mainly care about how well he played the matchup in terms of an individual level. So put the vision back on, but we can see trying to punish it for CSing, trying to get this wave in here, and then misses the E on the Irelia E, so we're going to blame the EU ping on this one. Doesn't have that Korea ping, but he's still, because of his trades were so good earlier, he's able to win this fight anyway, and he has a level and creep advantage, so she couldn't fight him on this timer. So really nice stuff by him. I'm really impressed with the 1-3, and even if Irelia didn't go in there and die, he would have based, come back, and been in a great position anyway, so I really enjoy how he played that early game lane. For our final matchup, we have, and I'm just going to pronounce it Zeb, who's another high rank. I think he's around 1000 LP, EU Aatrox main, and he's going to be playing Aatrox into Darius, so it's a pretty common matchup, and I know a lot of people struggle with Darius, so I really wanted to review this one. Initially, I was going to break down another Nile lane, but I watched all of his recent matchups, and the Irelia one was the only one where I felt like it'd be super productive. The rest weren't too good, and so here we're going to be watching him play against Darius, and he plays this matchup extremely well. So again, he leashed, and it's not really that I hate junglers that much, but I'm going to advise you not to leash in really scary matchups early game like this, like Fiora or Darius or Riven, because if this Darius was a bit more aggressive and started in bush, it can be quite hard for Aatrox to get in with his wave here and get level 2 at a reasonable time. But if he walked in with the wave and fought Darius in this bush, maybe even using your ward, it can be a lot easier for you. And because Darius tried to face check the bush, he got shit on a little bit. So this Darius was a little bit too passive for my liking. But it doesn't matter what rank you are, even an Emerald Darius, there might be a passive one game and a super aggro one the next. So it's better for you to be more consistent and not leash in this matchup so that you can walk in with the wave and ensure that you don't get shit on level 1 away from your minions. But we can see here, very consistent, he's going to be letting the Darius push him in and trying to hit the wave in the Darius with Qs as much as he can so that he can get level 2 at a similar time. So very consistent across all three Aatrox players that we've watched. They don't want to give that really big level 2 deficit, but he's still going to be letting him push because of course he's not going to get pushed in the matchup. And the upcoming trade here was something that was really impressive to me, where I'll slow it down a little bit. Right now this big wave is coming in. He not only wants to block the wave a little bit to stop it from fully crashing, but he also wants to bait out the Darius' spell. So you can see he waits for his E to come back up, and then he clicks towards this Darius with the intention, I want to bait your E. I want this Darius to E me. I'm going to give you E range, but he already E's away. Well, I think he dodged it with his movement anyway. His E was a little bit slow, that EU ping, but he manages to bait out this Darius' E. And now there's this 24-second cooldown where Darius can't hook him out from under tower, so he can trade very freely. And that's exactly what he does here. Something else you'll notice is he holds onto his W extremely well. I see this mistake quite a lot in the lower ranks where the Aatrox players will use their W when fighting somebody in the wave, just like a combo against a training tool, you know, the Q, W, QE combo type of thing. But if you use your W in the wave and it gets blocked by a minion, it feels really bad, especially because the cooldown is so long. So you can see he waits until he kills that last minion, and then he skills up W and throws it. So now Darius is going to get pulled in, and he also dodges the Darius Q with his E. So really impressive stuff from him. Even gets the extra passive stab as well. So really good trading. And now he's going to try to hit the wave a little bit. And this next wave control thing he also did was quite good. Going to be quite common that you want to do this trick on Aatrox and try to avoid the wave bouncing back too fast and you getting shit on here when you're at your weak point. You want more time to trade with the wave on your side, get these nice short trades before the wave gets brought out here, especially against champions like this that have a lot of good all-in threat. So we can see he let the melees die to tower and lasted him himself, but he's blocking the casters from reaching tower completely. So here Darius is a little bit hesitant to E. He doesn't want to get baited just like last time. And you can see by his movement, he's trying to do it a little bit as well. But his main goal is to block the casters from reaching tower. And now it's not going to permanently freeze. It will go back towards him. But it's going to buy him a lot of extra time where he can trade with the wave on his side. And he's not going to be in any threat of Darius running him down and getting 5 stacks. So really nice wave control from him here. And now he's got level 4. He's going to be looking to trade very shortly. So we'll see that coming up. But here, leads with Q1, holds on to E of course, drops W, Q1 E back to dodge the Q. So you can see he's mainly focused on avoiding Darius' Q with his E instead of making sure he hits his own spells. because Darius needs 5 stacks, and also the Q does damage and heals. So Darius Q hitting is more important than Aatrox's Q hitting, of course. So he's mainly looking to use his E to dodge it instead of hit his own abilities. So another nice trade there. And now the wave is pushing back out. So he probably wants to get one more good trade down, because if Darius is too healthy when the wave gets to here, he's going to get run down, which is why I see a lot of people, they ask me like, what do I do when my wave is here and Darius runs me down? But the mistake is always before that point, when if you're playing too passive and the Darius is full HP with the wave here, like yeah, you're probably going to get run down or killed by the jungler. You need to trade well before it gets to that point, exactly like he's doing in this clip. And here he pops Q1E just for bone plating. You can track the bone plating cooldown by watching the bar here. So he was playing around that there, just trying to get rid of bone plating before this next upcoming trade. And he also took bone plating himself. I didn't touch on his runes, but you can see his rune page is a bit different to the first two Aatrox players that we watched. He prefers Absorb Life, a bit greedy for his matchup, and Cut Down also for the matchup, the early parts of the lane. You can see he's already done 76 damage with it. So, and if he had last stand, he wouldn't have gotten any value. So he values his early lane a lot higher than the other Aatrox players. So it is personal preference, and he likes haste as well over attack speed. Another thing that I would say is personal preference. So it just depends on what you feel more confident in. But we can see now, the wave's pushing out towards Darius. He's got the minion and XP advantage. Darius gets the hook in, but as long as he can dodge the outer Q, so he dodges it by being inside of him, he should be fine. And then he just dumps his spells in front, because Darius is already too low that he can't get to 5 stacks. So he's backwards here. Q3 has to flash it. So he dodges the Q3, the Darius Q, by being on the inner ring, which means Darius is going to take way too long to get to 5 stacks that he couldn't continue that trade, and he's able to burn his flash away. And of course, the big weakness of Darius, he won't take TP. So if you can win these early trades, he's going to be in such a bad spot. And even if his jungler didn't come here and kind of help him out a little bit more, he would have crashed this big wave and Darius would have been really far behind anyway, where he would have been poking him under tower. But still nice of his jungler, I guess if you want to call it that, dying to his lane and top jungle. But it was worth it, he got a big trade-off. And now he decides to dive him under tower. First gets level 5 and he trades 1-for-1. So he didn't use his flash there because he knew Brand was around, but he wanted to die 1-for-1 there. Maybe not wanted to die, but wanted to trade 1-for-1 there. So Darius loses his massive wave, and now he's going to have a big lead against him. So I was quite impressed with this lane. It can be quite tricky early, but I'd say my advice for you, other than the things we broke down and talked about in this matchup, is don't be afraid to brawl Darius early, as long as the trade doesn't go long enough for him to get to 5 stacks. And if you play well around his Q and make sure he doesn't get that healing, you need to get him low enough so that when the wave bounces back, you have realistic options to either crash the wave or play for that kill yourself. And we're also going to be watching a mid game from Zeb. This game he's playing up against a Rengar, and he got himself a pretty noticeable lead. He's 3-0 here, and his build is also different to the previous two Aatrox players that we watched. He likes to go Sundered Sky into Lord Dom's Regard as a second item, which is pretty interesting, but it's cool to see that all three of the players have a different take on the best build, and he's just trying to push his lead even more and close out this game. He uses it very well, and the Brand was trying to guard the Rengar from being dove, but he manages to play it out, even though he gets hit by the stun. Pops ulti. Let's see his combo here. Hides back a little bit, knows Rengar's going to jump, so doesn't want his Q to get dodged. Auto, pops his W onto the Brand, then Q onto Rengar, takes him down. Flash Q3, so split up his damage a little bit there with the W, but not too bad, able to get the kill. And now he's going to be looking to push this wave in, TP back, and continue pressuring. So he plays a little bit more selfish. Actually, TP's in to kill the Brand. He plays a little bit more selfish from what I've seen than the other two Aatrox players. But in a game like this, where you are strong enough to make realistic progress inside, that is an option to close out the game that way. But it's going to really depend on the game. If you can't bash your tower in front of somebody, and on Aatrox that's very rare, you do want to be prioritizing team fights on them. But if you can threaten the 1v1 as hard as he can in this game, and there's no better options around the map, then you definitely can. Because if we look from his vision, he's not going to roam mid here and gank this Varus mid. He's already dead to Zac. It's better for him to pressure, poke this guy under tower, and put down the tier 2, as he doesn't have a better option. He doesn't have TP for bot either. He used it to kill jungle. So this is the best choice that he has in this game, even though it doesn't really follow that general Aatrox rule that we talked about. Able to get the tier 2, and that gives an insane amount of gold, so I definitely recommend it if you can. Bases to pick up his Lord Doms, and it runs straight to Dragon. So even though he did play selfish, he still wants to be at all the fights that he can during that 1 to 2 item mark on Aatrox when you want to get a lot of work done. And here he comes in, he's over the Dragon Wall. I like the E to reposition. I didn't like that he hit the Dragon, wasting time. In my opinion, it would have been better for him to sneak around here, pop his sweeper, and try to get involved in the fight also than DPSing Dragon. Like imagine if he's flanking from around here now, instead of hitting the Dragon, it would have been a bit better. But of course, easier for me to say in hindsight. It's just I always recommend not to hit the Dragon like that on Aatrox, because positioning in teamfight is so important on the champion. But we can see straight after Dragon, straight back to top, doesn't want to waste any time, and he even cheeses here, he hides on bush with Sweeper, so definitely mandatory to pick up Sweeping Lens on Aatrox and look for these creative angles we can pick up kills. So good on him there, jumps over the wall, takes down this wave, pressuring mid. So the reason he didn't go top here, for starters, going to take too long to run all the way there in pressure, and you're not going to get the tier 3 anyway. But also, he wants to be close enough that if his team needs him, he can come. Or if, he needs his team, they can come as well. And there's also a chance he gets the tier 2. So it's more pressuring for him to hit this tower straight away than to run all the way here, push the wave in, and take a long time to hit that tower. So he just applied the most pressure he could while his team was pressuring bottom. So pretty good by him there. And now he's going to go back to top that his team's not pressuring because he's got time to push in his own wave. A good decision, in my opinion, get the wave in. And he can't really poke this guy under tower tier 3 with the brand hiding. So pretty good read there. And he's just looking to be creative. You see he's constantly trying to take these bushes where he hopes somebody will walk past, a very likely spot that they will, and trying to get a pick. And I think he got a little bit scared there. He did assume, you should assume that Brand would have a ward there if he's walking up like this, very aggressive. And we know he didn't because we have God Vision, but pretty smart decision by him not to risk it there. And he gets a pink out from his teammate now, so he can maintain this push and threaten from the flank here. So pretty good by him. Constantly pressuring, holding this area here, making it really hard for them to walk in. And now that his wave is dropped, he has to go back for it. And this Varus having a pretty tough game, so he takes him out and just trying to apply as much pressure as possible. So this game was a bit easier, of course, than the one we watched before. So I wanted to showcase how you snowball in a winning game like that, and one where your team's quite far behind. And he uses the lead very well. He had the right mix of playing selfish for the tier 2, and also making sure he's a part of any major fight around Dragon, pressuring mid while his team's pressuring bot. So he did apply the most pressure he could in this game with his lead, which is why I thought it'd be a good example to break down. Alright everyone, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and feel free to let me know down in the comments what champion you'd like to see next. If your champion gets enough requests, I'll be looking to cover it, so hopefully your champion gets voted in. But other than that, appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys next time.